Okay, so hopefully you had some time to go over the story, to read it, and then if you needed to, you could have scanned the barcode to listen to it and go through it with the audio. All right, so let's check your answers against mine and let's see what we get. All right. So the first one is done for us. Felicia is exhausted. Right, she's tired. Right, very tired. She needs a vacation. Her husband Ricardo says he can ask his boss for a few, I wrote, days off. Okay, days off. Felicia would like to go to San Francisco. They look for special travel. I wrote down discounts. All right, on the internet. If they, I wrote down book a flight at least 7 days ahead, they can get a, I wrote down round trip ticket for less than $200. On the other hand, hotel room rates will be high because summer is the most popular, I wrote down tourist season. Also, there is a room, I wrote down tax on hotel rooms in San Francisco. I wrote down figured, I had to change the tense here. So this is all past tense, right? They figured out that a 3-day trip to San Francisco will cost almost $1,200. Felicia and her husband decided to change their plans. If they go, I wrote down camping, they will save a lot of money and their daughter will have more fun. Felicia's Felicia's husband will, I wrote down reserve the campsite after he talks to his boss. All right. So those are the answers that I got. Hopefully you got the same, right? All right. If not, please listen to this track again. All right. If your story is different, then maybe you're in the older book, and the older book and the newer book sometimes have changes. You're going to hear me say that throughout this lesson because I'm learning this more and more. I deal with this one book right now, but I know some of the older books had more complete information. So because of that, sometimes there's some changes. All right. So if you have a different story, please listen to this one. If you can scan this barcode, that'd be great. And if you did not get if you have the same story and you did not get the same answers, let's talk about that in our Zoom meeting. Okay. I know that this one, number 8, was a tricky one because we had to change the tense to simple past. All right. So now, moving on to B, talk with a partner. All right. So share this story with someone, right? And ask and answer the question: which would you prefer? A trip to San Francisco or camping in the mountains? Okay. And talk to your partner about which one would you like to do better. All right. Which one sounds better to you? Spending money going to San Francisco or spending money camping in the mountains? Which one would you have more fun doing? All right, that's great. So let's move on, and we will come back and look at lesson B. All right. Okay. So let's get into this. We have a lot of material to cover in Unit 10, free time, and there's going to be a lot of slides that you don't have in your book. There's going to be a lot of material that you don't have in your book, which is fine because I will provide this whole lesson for you on Zoom. I'm sorry, not on Zoom, on WhatsApp. All right, I will download it as a PDF, like I did with the other lessons, and provide these for you so that you can look through them and have them for reference for yourself, okay? Because there's a lot of information here that is not in the book. So please follow along, all right? So, Unit 10, free time, right? We're talking about vacation, right? Lesson B, all right? Now, before we jump into Lesson B, let's look at a few things, all right? Let's talk about conditionals, all right? Conditionals. Conditionals are sentence structures, or just sentences, right, that explain a particular situation or circumstance and its consequences. So that is big. That is a big thing here. Conditionals talk about a particular situation or circumstance and its consequence. All right, what happens as a result of the situation or the circumstance. All right, if this happens, then that happens. Okay, so if this happens, then that happens. All right, conditionals are commonly referred to as if sentence structures because they often contain the word if. All right, so that's big. That's very important. Conditionals often contain the word if. There are four main conditionals that are commonly used in the English language. First conditional, second conditional, third conditional, and zero conditional. Okay? Now the book is only going to deal with a few conditionals, but it's important that you understand that there are four of them. If you understand that there's four of them, then it's easier to recognize when you're looking at a conditional, right? And then it's easier to work through the conditional to understand it. All right, so that's why I'm going to introduce you to the four main conditionals instead of just one. All right, so there's first conditional, there's second conditional, there's third conditional, and then zero conditional. All right, and they're not hard. We'll go through each one. All right, first conditional, daily considerations. All right, daily considerations. The first conditional deals with issues that have a real possibility of occurring or happening. This is something that's like real life, okay? This conditional typically deals with future real world events that are pondered or thought about on a daily basis. When people make plans and suggest backup plans, they are utilizing or using the first conditional. The first conditional uses the if-then structure and the words will, shall, can, or may to convey the future action being considered. Okay, so first conditional uses will, shall, can, or may to convey the future action being considered. All right. This is what the book, when we go through conditionals in this book, in this lesson, we're going to be talking primarily about first conditional, which is talking about future actions. All right? Future actions and real actions. Okay? So let's look at this. The following sentences are examples of the first conditional. So remember, if-then statements, right? If I can get if I can get the work, if I can get the time off, if I can get the time off of work, then I will come visit you in Baton Rouge. Okay, if and then. Situation is if I can get the time off of work, right? The consequences are I will come visit you in Baton Rouge. Okay? If we burn the dinner, we may have to order pizza. Okay? If starts out with the situation, if we burn the dinner. So that's a real possibility, right? Then the backup plan, right, would be we may have to order pizza. Okay? I can work from home if my internet connection gets fixed. Okay? So here we've turned it around, right? We've switched it around where the consequence is I can work from home. The situation is I have to get my internet fixed, right? So I can work from home if my internet connection gets fixed. So it's important that not only that we understand that the first conditional can be written this way, where we start with if I can get time off from work, right? Then I will come visit you in Baton Rouge. We can also write first conditionals the opposite way. I can work from home if my internet connection gets fixed. Let's look at the last one. If it rains tomorrow, situation, I shall go to the movies. Consequence. Okay? If it rains tomorrow, I shall go to the movies. So here again, first conditional, daily considerations. These are issues or conditionals that have a real possibility of happening, the real world. All right? How do we use them? We use them in if-then statements, and we can use the words will, shall, can, or may. All right? And we're talking about actions in the future. All right? Let's talk about the second conditional. These are not real possibilities. These are not real world. All right? These are sort of like fantasy. Okay? Wishful thinking. All right? But the way we write them are still conditionals. All right? The second conditional is a bit more tricky. So remember that. It's a little bit more tricky. So you have to pay attention to this one. In some ways, it is similar to the first conditional. It utilizes the same if-then structure, right? But instead of using words will, shall, can, or may, the second conditional uses would, could, or might, right? Because these are not real possibilities. The most significant or the largest difference, greatest difference between the second conditional and the first conditional, however, is that the second conditional deals with events that are not real possibilities. They just wishful thinking or fantasies. In many cases, the events could happen because they're not physical impossibilities. All right, they could happen. Right, and we'll see in our example of what that means. All right, it's not like we would say, I would, if I could breathe in space, then I would be the greatest superhero ever. Right? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something a little bit more down to earth. The second conditional is what English speakers use when they are dreaming about something or fantasizing about a situation. All right. The following, the following sentences are examples of the second conditional. If I had $1 million, I might open an animal sanctuary. Right? Not totally impossible, but probably not something that's real. If we lived in Spain, we would enjoy the siestas, right? So not totally impossible, totally, but still a fantasy, right? If I became president, I could do away with the penny, okay? Not totally impossible, but still, it's sort of like a fantasy, all right, or a dream. All right, so that's the second conditional. Remember the words that we use: would, could, or might, right? And we, excuse me, and we still use that whole if-then situation, all right? I could say, if I had $1 million, then I might open an animal sanctuary. If we lived in Spain, then we would enjoy the siestas. If I became president, then I could do away with the penny. I could write it that way, more formal. All right. Third conditional, the past. All right. While the first, excuse me, while the first two conditionals talk about possible future events, the third conditional deals with the past. Specifically, the third conditional talks about events in the past and thinks about the effects of those events not happening. It's a little crazy, right? We'll look at the examples and hopefully that'll help us out. Because we can't go, excuse me, because we can't go back in time, the third conditional deals with events that have no possibility of happening. The third conditional uses the words would, have, to convey these impossible events. The following are examples, and these are pretty universal. Even in most native languages, we use third conditionals, all right, to talk about things in the past, right, that we cannot change, all right, but we kind of fantasize and think that, for instance, if Bobby Kennedy hadn't been assassinated or killed, if he hadn't been killed, he would have, right, would have made a great president, right? If I had bet on the long shot, or the least favorite thing, person, horse, I don't know, whatever it is, right? If I had on boxer, if I had bet on the long shot, the least favorite person or thing, I would have made a killing, or a lot of money. Okay, a killing doesn't mean to kill somebody. It means to make a lot of money. This is one that's pretty common, right? If I had married her when I had the chance, I would have been very happy, or I would have been happy. Okay, so third conditional talks about possible things in the past, but they're impossible. It's possible, but it's impossible because we can't go in the past. We can't go back in time and fix these things, right? So these are examples of the third conditional. All right. And the last one is zero conditional, something that's always true. So it's the total opposite of the third conditional. The zero conditional deals with issues that are always true. They can often be they can often be thought of as stating a scientific fact. Here are the examples. If you don't ever water your plants, they die. Okay? If then. If you don't water your plants, then they die. Right? If you jump in a lake, you get wet. Right? That's always true. If it gets below freezing, water turns to ice. That's a scientific fact. It's always true. If you stick your hand in a fire, it burns. Right? That's true. It's always true. Right? It's a scientific fact. All right. So these are zero conditionals. All right. So we have gone through the four conditionals: first conditional, second conditional, third conditional, and zero conditional. All right, now we know what they are. Let's jump into the book on page 124, and let's look at what the book wants us to learn about conditionals. All right,